All power to the people.
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 So as I said, my name is King Downey. I was a community worker for the Black Panther Party, but first I want to recognize all of the Black Panther Party veterans and BLA, Black Liberation Army veterans who are here. Please stand up and be recognized. Somewhere in the back, you'll get a chance to talk to some of them and go down the floor. So there are some others here. Sekou Dinga's here. I don't see him in here now, but he was just sitting over here. So you'll have a chance to talk to everybody. But we're going to turn to the film of the moment. But I want to take you back a little bit. He and I have known each other since we were teenagers. But I want to ask you a story that's kind of relevant to this film festival. You remember Nikki's Pizza?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the boycott of Nikki's Pizza?
Yeah.
So here's the story. You remember Chip?
McLean.
I wasn't going to say his last name, but that's okay. So anyway, we were teenagers. Nikki's Pizzeria served a lot of us young black folks, and I guess to help his business, he hired a sister who worked as a waitress there. One day she came to me crying because she said she got in a disagreement with Nikki about her pay. And we didn't like to leave Nikki's when the time came to end, so he got a big German Shepherd that he kept in the kitchen. And when he told us it was time to go, you know how we are, we're like, no, we're not ready to leave yet. He let that dog loose up onto the counter, and everybody ran out of there. So our friend says, when I told him we had this disagreement about the pay, he sicked the dog on me, and the dog lunged on me and bit me. So Chip and I put on our berets, we put on denim jackets because we didn't have leather coats, and we put on our Panther buttons, and we started a boycott of Nick's Pizza. We stood out there every day at the end of the day with our arms crossed like this in front of it until nobody, including the parents, the older folks, all boycotted Nick's, and the following summer, Nikki's Pizza was closed. So Chip and I actually thought we had created a chapter of the Black Panther Party. We read the paper, and you know, he was Huey and I was Bobby, because he was kind of the intellectual one and I was the one that was really more scrappy. So that's my little story that takes us back to that childhood. So you remember all of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's turn to this. What is it that you knew about Attica before you made the film?
You know, I was alive during Attica. I was probably 19 or 20, and you know, I just remember it day by day, and I didn't know probably anything more than everybody else, but you know, it didn't make sense. We were following it, and then it was just this sinking feeling when Rockefeller sent the military in. I was just like, oh no. And you know, for 30, 40 years, as I became a filmmaker, I just thought about making the film of Attica, and thought that, you know, the story really hadn't been told. It didn't make any sense, you know, to do that, you know, what was behind it. A few years back, I started thinking more about it and realizing that, you know, the brothers who were out in the yard, you know, they were young, a lot of them. They were 18, 20, you know, 21. And, you know, so there were a lot of them were still alive. There were almost 1,000 guys out in the yard. So I figured a bunch of them would still be alive. And a bunch of them would not probably have ever had the chance to really tell their story. So that's when we started.
That's dedication, brother. Yeah. That is dedication.
Thank you. So we started, you know, we started really pursuing the film, you know, seriously at that point, probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
What goes into making that decision? There's very little in the present. It's all historical. What goes through your mind when you decide whether you're going to pursue it or not?
Well, I mean, I knew there were witnesses. I figured there were a lot of people still alive. We knew that there was some footage. You know, I had seen footage, you know, in different anniversaries or other films. I knew there was footage. We didn't have any idea the amount of footage that we would find or the amount of witnesses we would find. We started looking, and then, we thought that probably all the people that were on the observer committee would probably have passed away because they were a little bit older. They had, already achieved some kind of success. That's why they were on the observer committee. But then, we found them, and Clarence Jones, who ends the film, by saying he'll never, ever forget. He lives in California, but he had to come to New York for something, and we had a breakfast with him, and we started talking, and he started telling stories, me and Tracy, and we said, okay, will you be in the film? He said, yeah, sure, Stanley, I'll be in the film. And at that point, we knew. At that point, we were like, okay, we can make a film. I mean, we had no idea that it would turn out to be what it turned out to be, but we knew that we had enough to really make a film.
And then, so now once you green light that, you figure out how to tell the story. I mean, linearly, flashbacks. How did you make the decisions that you made?
So we got a little money from this company called First Look, and we did what's called a teaser or a sizzle reel. And so it's like an 8-minute reel. We did like two days of interviews. We interviewed maybe 4 or 5 different people, found some footage. We didn't pay for it, at this point you can just steal footage off YouTube and stuff like that because you're not gonna broadcast it. And then we put together a 5 or 6 minute sizzle reel. And then we went out and started trying to sell it. So on the 6 minute sizzle reel, we talked to Netflix and Showtime and some others, and Showtime bought in, they said, yeah, okay. And so even the sizzle reel kind of had that day-by-day structure. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And we just kind of kept to that. The biggest decision was when do we flash back and talk, we call it the flashback, where we talk about why they actually rebelled and what the town was like and that whole piece. And we found this great soundbite where he's talking and he says, we're here because of this treatment, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of use that to go into the town. And then we found this piece of footage where the guy is walking down the street in Attica, and he says, there's college towns and there's factory towns. Attica is a prison town. And we're just like, oh my God. Yeah, let's go. And then actually those home movies that we see of the people in Attica at their weddings and stuff like that, actually the people from Attica gave us their home movies to use. And so that's actually the town of Attica.
I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions, and we're going to turn it over to you all, because that's how we do. We have that dialogue, so start thinking about what you want to ask. Attica, for me, represented the first time that I saw incarcerated people organized, but also speaking and showing some kind of humanity and intelligence. And so, what was your reaction to the conversations that you were having with these folks all those years later?
As you see in the film, I mean, they're incredible, and their personalities come through. One's a guy, who's very religious, and others, he says, I just wanted to fuck up some of the cops, he's funny, he talks about getting drunk out in the yard, others, and so their personality really comes through, but also, their intelligence, comes through, and it just kind of, it's never said in the film, and nobody ever says it, and those guys were really intelligent, or they were really articulate, as people say, about black folks. I love them. My favorite is Obama, President Obama. He's really articulate. He's the president of the United States.
And a law professor.
What do you think? But anyway, it was their personalities and who they are and their human beingness just comes through without us, pointing to it. And I think that's kind of one of the subtexts of the film. These guys are, one of the guys, I was actually with him 2 days ago, we did a presentation in DC, and Tyrone Larkins, and he was in prison for 27 years after Attica, because he was in for life, and he served another 27. I think he served 3 or 4 years at Attica. He served another 27 years.
This will be my last question before I turn it over to you all. And then after that, if we can get the house lights on too, so we can have the conversation. Thank you. So, I don't know, every one of these films of yours takes us back into history, and then it also projects history forward. Do you think about how you think this film could be used? And if you do, what would you like to see happen with the film? What would you like to see it do or change?
I think that realistic. I try to be a realist about it, and be realistic about it. Look, I'd like the whole prison system to change. For the people to march out of here and go beat down the doors. But realistically, I think that one thing that I always think about is the story the guy tells about the first night out in the yard, and where the guy's wandering around looking out up at the sky, and he says, "What's wrong?" He says, I haven't seen the night sky in 22 years. I think that if we walk away from this, if people walk away from this, thinking about that and understanding that there's people in jail, there's 2 million people in jail in this country, who are not going to see the night sky. They're not going to see the night sky tonight or tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow. So hopefully, at the very least, it starts people to thinking about those people who are incarcerated, and all the intelligence and beauty of the people who are incarcerated senselessly.
So I actually had another one to sneak in here, because I just wanted you to just put in a quick plug for Harriet Tubman, my shero, and Frederick Douglass, my hero.
Yeah, so Harriet Tubman, film we did on Harriet Tubman will premiere next week on the 4th October on PBS 10 o'clock, and then Frederick Douglass a week later on October 11th on PBS, and those are the premieres of these films. One of the great things that we had happen is that we showed Frederick Douglass a couple of weeks ago on Frederick Douglass Avenue, in the middle of the street, on 120th Street in Frederick Douglass Avenue. At night, Image Nation put up a big screen, and it was just really a trip, on Frederick Douglass Avenue, watching a film on Frederick Douglass.
I went to the series, but I missed that one, so we got to get the word out about that. And we will be following, we'll put the word out about it, and I don't know, they may be on the schedule for next year's festival. Maybe you'll get 2 in. All right, so we're gonna open it, we turn the house lights on, and we're gonna open it up to you for questions, hopefully. This is not a chance for your polemics, because time is gonna be short, and you'll have a chance downstairs to speak to folks. So I wanted to do 2 things first. I always thank Maisels. We've been here for 14 years. This is the first iteration. Before we started here, there were 3 film festivals, one in New Haven, and one at the Schaumburg, and one up at Columbia. And then we didn't have a home, and so for a few years, nothing was happening. And then the Black Panther Commemoration Committee, which I'm a part of, took this on and have been doing it now for 14. But we couldn't have done it without Maisels Cinema. Albert Maisels used to sit here for the festival. He never missed a day. He had his glass of red wine right down here in the chair. And then his wife, after he passed away, came. She was here last year. She was wheelchair bound, but she supported us. But I also want to recognize the president emeritus of Maisels, who is standing in for them. And I am not good with names, brother. I just met you, but please give him a round of applause and please tell us your name.
I just want to say that the Maisels Center for Documentary Film is committed to social justice, and there can't be a better example of a film series than the Black Panther film series. And I just want to thank you so much, Stanley Nelson, for participating and getting us off to the right start on the right footing. So, bless you and thank you.
Thank you. Name?
Joe Wendell. Wendell.
Great. All right. I just want to do one more honorary thing, and I would like to give the first question or comment to our political prisoner, beloved brother Sekou Odinga, if you have anything you would like to ask or say. I mean to put you on the spot, but I have to give honor where honor is due.
Peace, thank you. No, I didn't really have no questions. I mean, I saw a lot of folks that I knew who did the film, you know. It's the second time I've seen it, but it's really, it makes you think. It makes you really question what type of country do we live in that will allow that. Right. And that could still happen today.
Yeah.
It's not it hasn't changed yet.
Yeah, in fact, it is happening in a few places around the country as we speak. So I do have a question for you. We look at it and we see that inside from the outside. You're seeing inside as you saw from the inside. So what is your take on what you've seen here?
Survival. Prisoners try to survive the best they can, try to improve their lives the best they can, and having that struggle. It's a struggle. It's a day-to-day struggle to survive, and that's what they were doing. You know.
Thank you. Another hand for Sekou Odinga.
Thank you.
Okay. The floor is open. And I also, anybody who can tell me the answer to this quote, no Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee members, no former Black Panther Party veterans, no BLA veterans, anyone else who can answer this, I have a prize for. And tell me who said this quote. Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, determine its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. You don't have to answer now, let me know. And the reason why I bring it up is because we have some students here. And I told them I was going to put them on the spot, because we love the students. The students from Bard College are here. Give them a hand, give them a round of applause. Now, some of them are here because they took a class and they're here for extra credit, but they're still here. Is there any spokesperson among you who would like to say what the class is about and what you got out of this? They're looking at each other. So we got to call on somebody, huh? Oh, there you go. She said,
Hi,
What's the name of your name, the name of the class?
okay, my name is Starion, Beyonce Ambrose Smith. I'm part of Making of the Crossroad State with my fellow Bard students. And the main thing I got from the film is continue to fight.
Any of you have a question for Stanley Nelson?
I actually would like to say something to Bard students who
Oh,
are here.
okay.
That
Okay.
we here at the Maisel Center.
That's right.
We here at the Maisel Center for Documentary Film, one of our initiatives is the Bar to Prison College Initiative. And it's becoming an incredibly important initiative for us. And I'm just so glad you guys are here. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that.
No, that's great. All right, any Bard students? Yeah, I have a question for Stanley.
Thank you. My name is Verna, and I am a Bard student. And I guess my question is, did Bobby Seale ever reveal as to why he left? Do we know why he just stayed for like 3 minutes? And the discouragement of, of all the prisoners, of him not staying, him not even walking the yard. Did we ever find out if they had something to say about that?
I never found out, no.
Is there another hand? Is that-
Bobby left.
Oh, here, go ahead. Get on.
Bobby left because we had a censure committee. And for him to do anything else of what he did, he had to talk with the censure committee to find out the next step of our support, and we did support him. And my brother was driving one of the cars with the bodyguard, and the other car was with Bobby. And the helicopters came over and said, "Mr. Seale, they want you back at the prison." And as he was driving up, that's when the attack started. And they were sending a message also to the Black Panther Party that no matter what you do, we don't care about y'all.
Questions? Questions, anybody? Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. Yes, of course.
Thank you. I'll be quick. So, Brother Nelson, thank you for doing this. This is fantastic. I got about 6 questions. If I can sneak 3 in there. One question. I wanna ask if you have any. It's a research type question. Do you have footage of the White Power, for instance? Footage, right? Do you have any other inclinations of like clan country type involvement in the correction officer institution in Attica?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's an amazing piece of footage, you know, where the guy, such a
One more.
white power, you know, it's just amazing.
Okay, I see you, sister.
Go ahead.
I see you. Go ahead.
So, I've never been to a prison in New York, but I did spend quite a bit of time volunteering in a prison in Nebraska at the Lincoln Penitentiary. And I was fairly young then. I just wanted to get to work there, and then I ended up just deciding to volunteer there. And what really struck me about your film, and I've seen many of your films, was just the similarity in terms of the population of the size of the prison, the population of the prison. So my question to you, and I also wanted to offer that I used to communicate with David Rice Mondawalenga, who was one of the Black Panthers before he died, and so I was really glad to see him in that film. At that time, there was a lawyer from New York who used to come to Nebraska, and they were trying to free David Rice and David Poindexter. But also wanted to comment on the fact that the intelligence that everybody talks about, and all of that was there in Nebraska as well. You can imagine a state that had a 3% Black population when I was there. 95% of the prison population was Black men. Yeah. So for me, the question that I have for you, Mr. Nelson, is that one of the things that frustrates me about the US is the failure to draw the patterns. The fact that we can think that this happens in New York, in Utica, but actually the real tragedy is that all over the nation, in Wisconsin, in Montana, in Utah, Black men 20 years ago when I was there constitute the vast majority of the prison population, and you may not have a Utica there, but you have a sort of Utica in the loss of just generations of young men. So the question, I think I hope I made that clear. The failure to draw the patterns across, how can that happen? And what opportunities are there for you to show the patterns? The fact that this is really predominant in every state in the country.
I'm not sure of the question exactly. I think that.
I think he's got it. He's asking about this being consistent all across the country.
Yeah, I hope that when people see the film, I think when they see the film, they understand that Attica is all over, is everybody. Attica is everywhere. You know that it was the most deadly and the most documented, but that it's not. I hope people understand that it's not just Attica, and that it's a condition that we have, that we have 2 million people that are in prison all over the country, that the vast majority of prisons in this country are in places like Attica. They're in the middle of nowhere, and that's for a reason, so we don't have to see them, and so that these communities like Attica survive off the prisons. And it happens for a reason. So I hope that that we understand that Attica is, as they say, Attica is all of us, and Attica is everything.
I think my point was that in New York.
I'm sorry, we have to, I'm sorry, we have to respect the fact that everybody, we're taking one more question,
Yes.
and then you'll be able to have conversation downstairs with, members of the Veterans of the Party, BLA members. One last question for Stanley Nelson. Anybody here? Okay, here we go. Okay, that was a nice move there. Go ahead.
Thank you for this film. I heard about Attica, but this was the first time I got to see something pretty in-depth about it. How do you feel about the fact that, you know, there are cell phones now in prisons? I mean, we have, like during quarantine, you know, in Brooklyn, like the detention center, there was like, you know, terrible like upkeep of like, you know, facilities, like, you know, do you feel like, you know, now that, I mean, there are cell phones there, but there's not, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make my question, but.
I think he's got it. Before
Yeah,
you,
cool.
before you answer, right. This sister I ignore, so you can just ask your question quick and he can answer both of them. So one was about cell phones and.
Hi, my name is Miracle Baker. I'm a recent graduate of the New School in my master's in film. My question was, it took you over 4 years to create this film. What, like stylistically, as far as the interviews, how many interviews did you take over that time? And what was your decision process on picking the clips that you picked and the people that you decided to schedule the interviews for?
I am so glad that Shep smacked me in the back because you got a question about the film aesthetic and I'm glad we're ending on that one.
Everybody that we interviewed except one person is in the film, so, you know, everybody that we interviewed is in it. We felt that the only group of people that we had, you know, surplus of were the former prisoners, you know, because there were 1,000 people in the yard. But so we tried to find as many of them as possible. But once we had, you know, kind of a core group and they were great, we didn't need to talk to, you know, 900 other people. You know, for the reporters, we were just amazed that John Johnson was still alive. For anybody, you know, everybody here is pretty much too young to remember John Johnson. Yeah. But he was the shit. Yeah. You know, John Johnson, you know, like that afro. He was like the first guy, you know, that was like John Johnson with the news. And he was alive and would talk to us, and you know, he was a little sketchy. You know, Tracy was talking to him and she said, well, you know, it's always a thing where you know, finally it's like, okay, you know, we don't let anybody tell anybody else no. So nobody, you know, Tracy or the associate producer, if they call people up and people say, oh, I don't want to do this, then they say, you know, you have to speak to Stanley. And so then I called John Johnson and I was like, you know, serious. I mean, I wasn't even playing. I was like, John Johnson, I got you on the phone. I mean, I remember you. I mean, because he was the thing, you know. And when I talked to him, he said, oh yeah, okay, of course I'll do it. So, you know, he was great. And then the footage, you know, one of the things we used every single piece of footage that we had inside the yard, you know, to build that. You know, and for film people, they were still shooting on 16mm film. So that's why it looks like that. You know, it looks like a, you know, an active feature film because they weren't shooting on tape, they were shooting on 16mm film. And so we went back to ABC, NBC, CBS, basically those were the networks back then, and had them find the 16mm if we could, and then retransfer it for us. So it's perfectly clean and it's just beautiful. And you know, the camera people there were much more skilled because back then, because 16 millimeter film is so expensive, you know, it costs around $200, $300 or so every 12 minutes for a 12-minute reel to develop it. So you know, they had to be good, and you had to, you know, you couldn't expose it to light. You had to change it and change it, and it was really complicated. So the people, and you know, I have a good friend who I used to work with who retired, who was a great cinematographer. He spent 15 years as an assistant, you know, just to learn. But, you know, now, you know, if you ever see New York 1, you know, the reporter sets up the camera, turns it on, and then runs around in front and starts talking. You know, so it was a whole different thing. So, you know, those are some of the things that went into the aesthetic of the film and making it look like it did. And then for some weird reason, the state of New York, the prison actually had a early iteration of a video camera, and that's all the black and white footage that you see in the film. And they started filming during the riot. When the rebellion started, they actually started filming. So, you know, they're filming, and they, you know, they're up in a tower just filming. And I think they didn't know how to take the mic off. So you hear them say, you know, that's the biggest, ugliest Negro gentleman I've ever seen, and all this other stuff. You just hear them say it. And also, the shot is real, where you know they couldn't zoom in as close as they wanted, so they took the scope off the rifle and put it in front of the lens, and they're shooting through the rifle scope, so you see
with the crosshairs.
You see the profiles and the crosshairs. I mean, that's real, you know, and all that stuff was. I mean, it was just kind of. You know, we just find more and more stuff. The pictures of the guys nude at the end, the beautiful color pictures. Liz Fink, who was the lawyer for the Attica brothers, and you know, spent like 25 years. She passed away, but she spent 25 years, you know, suing the state of New York. We called up the people who manage her estate, and they said, "Oh, you're doing a film on Attica? Okay, we'll put everything we got onto a drive and send it to you." And then they sent us this, and those pictures were on the drive. And we said, "Who took those color pictures of the nude people?" And they said, "We don't know. We don't know. They just turned up, and we've got them." You know, I'm still waiting for somebody like in the back of the room, don't you? They just say, "I shot it, and I got a lawyer." So
It's too late.
a little late, but you know, you never know. But you know, so. One of the things we had an archival producer, and she's looking for archival material, footage and stills and the Nixon tapes, which are just incredible. You know, was it the blacks? Really? That's President of the United States. You know, and she's looking like all day, every day. That's her job. So like for the year or so that we were actually in production, you know, she's like, you know, 40 hours, 50 hours a week, she's looking for stuff, just looking for stuff. I should also say, you know, one thing that you should know is that the whole film was made during COVID, during the time of COVID. So we were about to shoot in April of 2020, and COVID struck in March. So we had to go on hiatus for like 6 months, and then we couldn't hold the people any longer. The producer and the associate producer, so we just had to start because they were like, we got to get other jobs, you know. So it was just really difficult. So the archives were closed. Doing interviews, we said that we have to make this film look like it was done pre-COVID. You know, we didn't want people to be wearing masks. We didn't want people to shoot people on Zoom. We wanted, and it looks incredible. It looks beautiful. And sometimes, you know, Tracy, who did the interviews, most of the interviews, she's in another room, and she's like, and you know, we would set up a laptop, and they would be looking at Tracy's image on a laptop, and looking like right at her image, and so the only person in the room would be the person that we're interviewing, and the camera person. You know, the sound person might put a mic on and leave, and then Tracy's in another room. and then we had to wipe down the whole room. I mean, you remember when COVID started, right? When I got the newspaper delivered and I would wipe down the newspaper. I'd be wiping down apples and oranges and ants, you know, because we didn't know. But so we did the whole film, during COVID, and that was just, somebody asked me one time in a Q&A, they're like, well, was there any benefit for, doing the film at the time of COVID? And I was like, no. The only benefit is maybe we had longer to think about it because we had to go on hiatus. But I guess that answers your question. And to answer the cell phone question, I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, we all kind of see what happening in the prisons at Rikers. Rikers are, I think it was in the paper today or yesterday.
Somebody has died.
Every day there's something new. It's just, it's horrible. It hasn't changed. I mean, more so like our prisons better, or yeah, maybe they're a little better. Maybe they have education programs in a library, but it's balanced by the fact that you now have 2 million people in prison. So is it better or worse? That's relative.
So if we leave it there, is there a chance that you can pop downstairs for some refreshments and have a couple of
cheese cubes?
Yeah. We have some stronger stuff too. So
I don't know how to do that.
Claudia, hold the door. Sergeant Arms, hold the door. Please, everybody sit down. We're not done. We're not done. We're almost done. So I want you to repeat after me. Freedom ain't free.
Freedom ain't free.
Freedom ain't free.
Freedom ain't free.
And the reason why I have the Sergeant at Arms at the door is because we asked you to make a donation for the film. Oh, you're gonna handle it. Okay. So here's what we're gonna ask you one more time to think about the fact Stanley Nelson is here. Maisels has made this home for us. We've been here 14 years. All the proceeds go to political prisoners and their commissary. So we're going to do this in a certain order, and I would like to start with anybody who has been doing pretty well or is pretty committed. Is there anybody here who is willing to make an additional donation of $100 in the name of the political prisoners? It all goes to the commissary. We don't take a piece off of it all. Anybody here doing so well, so moved? Please.
I mean, I don't have any cash right now. How do you want me to do it?
I
don't have $100.
You could send us your firstborn.
I mean, I want to put something in now, but how would we go about doing that?
Well, right now, we can take a check made to the Black Panther Commemoration Committee, National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party. So thank you. You've already given so much here on behalf of any other $100 people. We've got one. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? It's the price of, a couple of those dinners that you go out to. And this is for the political prisoners. Any group of people willing to collectivize their money to come up with $100. And I'll take all your names. Anybody? Anybody? All right, how about $50? Is anybody doing well or committed enough here to make a pledge of $50? Any $50 people here?
I'll do 150.
Oh, 150. Thank you, thank you. Any $50 people? We didn't have our square with us today.
We got see your sister right here?
Oh, we got it. Okay. So $50. What's your name?
She Brazil right there.
Sorry, say it again.
Raven.
So thank you. Make some noise for Raven. Remember, this is what it's all about. This is the whole point of the festival. So this is the time when we ask.
You too?
Oh, okay.